All right, so I have the lovely Megan here who is going to be my student today, so I can show you all things hands-on adjustments in your downward facing dog. So Megan is a yoga instructor, so she knows good alignment in down dog, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to get her to come into something that we typically see in our students. So Megan, if you want to come into downward facing dog, and maybe the first thing I'll get you to do is come into like a really long down dog. Yeah, so what we'll see typically in students is, and I'll get you to just bring your heels up super high as well. Maybe even a little bit longer, so feet really far back. Yeah, so we'll see this in students, and what we really want them to do is bring their feet a little bit closer. So you have a few options. Obviously, when you are adjusting your students, you want to make sure that you have permission. Megan has obviously given me permission to touch her in this video. So you can simply use your hand by placing it here and just asking your student to bring their foot a little closer. So Megan's just going to bring her feet closer. I'll just ask her to do that. Yeah, good. And then what happens in students when they have this really long down dog is perhaps they have a lot of tightness in their hamstrings or in their shoulders, or even some injuries or tightness into the wrist. So this, when they walk their feet in, typically you'll see heels up super high. Yeah, and then they're sort of struggling in their upper back. So what I'll get them to do is just maybe even placing my hand on their knee, the back of their knees, and just ask them to bend their knees. Yeah, and then they can go ahead and guide the heels a little farther down, and again, bend the knees. So we're modifying here. What you might notice when we do that is that the student has a really rounded upper back. So they're taking a lot of the pressure out of the knees here, and they're placing it onto their wrists or upper back. So we'll come to the front, and we can gently sort of guide them. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just place my hands on their hands. So, and you can even ask them to keep their hands where they are. This is a nice little grounding to place your hands there. And then we can gently place our hands there and push their chest back. Yeah, and what you might notice is that they tend to bend the knees even deeper when we push back here. Good, okay. Another thing what we notice in students is they have their hands really close together, so fingers and thumbs are close together, and their hands aren't spread open wide. We want to be really mindful when we are offering the adjustments that we're not opening the hands up too wide. There could be an injury, there could be some arthritis. So we're really gentle here, but what I'll do is I'll take my thumbs and I'll just gently place my thumbs against the inside of their thumb and their pinky, and just gently slide fingers apart, and then I'll go to the other side and just gently slide them apart, and the student will understand that they need to widen their hands a little. Okay, what I see Megan do in class often is a really grounding posture to really get your student to draw their heels down. So what you can do is you can gently place your hands on the back of their calves, and just energetically we're just sliding down. You can even add a little bit of pressure when you get to the heels. Good. And then really I want you to be mindful in your students. Some students have their feet a little closer together or a little wider apart because of hip rotation. Typically we're going to have their feet about hip distance apart, but what you might notice is that we have toes out and heels in. So Megan, if you just want to flare your toes out, so we'll see this where they have their heels in and their toes out. So what you can do is gently place your thumb on the inside of their heels, and we're just going to guide their heels out. Obviously we're using verbal cues when we guide this as well, and we can just say hide your heels or spin your heels out to the left and right. Yeah, so that could take a little bit of pressure or a little bit of work into the hip flexors, so just being mindful with your students. If they move their heels back in right away, you can just move on. So let's say Megan here, she has a really great strong steady down dog. She's a beautiful down dog, and there's no adjustments that I need to make to get her into right alignment. So she's got a great alignment, but what I want to do is I want to offer her some deep grounding adjustments. So this posture, or sorry, this adjustment that I'm going to do, I really want you to be mindful that you're not coming to your students too quickly, because it is a very close personal adjustment. So what I'll do is I'll place my feet on either side of her feet behind her. And you can, a couple of options. You can simply place your hands into her hip creases. Now I'm going to bend my knees. Anytime you're giving adjustments, you really want to make sure that your stability is strong first. You don't want to topple over. You don't want your student to fall on you. So having bent knees, and then I can place my hands in her hips, and then I can just gently guide them up. So this one is just like an energetic guiding. I can see automatically that she's lengthening her spine. If you want a little bit more, this is the one that I love to do. And I would really only offer this adjustment to students that I'm really comfortable with, or that are really comfortable with myself. Say, for example, a student that comes to class often and they love adjustments. So what I'll do is I'm behind her straddling, and I'm going to wrap my arms around her hips. And I'm sort of hooking my forearms around her hips. I can interlace my hands, or you can just cross your hands, but I like the interlace, a little bit of stability. And then I'm squeezing her hips. I'm squeezing her hips like this, and I'm lifting up. So I squeeze, I lift, and then I start to pull back, and I'm sending my hips back. You can stay here. This is great. So this is taking pressure off of her wrists. It's getting really deep into her hamstrings. So just being aware of what's happening in your student. If you feel like they're struggling, or if you notice that they're bending their knees, it might be a little too much. And if you want, not necessary, but you can even take a little sway here with your student, side to side. Good. And then as you come out of it, you can release your hands, and then you just slowly release. We don't want to release any of our adjustments too quickly. And sometimes I'll like to just keep my hand on the back of their hip before I step away, and then I can release my hand to let them know that I have moved away. So then coming to the front, same sort of adjustment, but this time I'll be doing it from the front. So again, we can offer first hands onto their hands, letting them know that we're here and that we're offering some grounding. And then you can place your hands on their shoulders. So just this gentle guide back, and you're almost pushing up and back. So it's a sort of an energetic here. Okay, that's one option. Another option is hands like this. So we have our hands in sort of wings, our thumbs together, fingertips wide. So my thumbs are at the center of her spine. I'm sort of in the middle of her back, gently pushing back. So you can add a little bit of pressure, or you can add a lot if you see that your student has a really strong down dog. And then as I release, so I'm pushing into her, and then as I come out of this, I straighten my arms, so I'm not adding any pressure, but my hands are still touching, and then I can release. This last one here that I'll show you is the same that we did from the back. I'm going to straddle her shoulders here, bend my knees, and you can place your hands either around the hips if that feels comfortable for you as an instructor, or you can just simply place hands, palms either together or one palm on the other on the low back. So if I have hands on hips, again, I'm pushing and I'm also lifting up, 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 up. Okay, and then as I release, I'm still touching, but I'm not pushing. And then I release my hands, or we can have, oh, she's been holding this down dog for a while. So good on you, Megan. She's doing amazing here. And then we can lift up, push, good, and release. So I hope that helps you with hands-on adjustments in your downward facing dog. Thanks, Megan.